Alright, let's jump right into it. Obviously, you need some wood to start with, and I got this chunk of birch, which I cut years ago with a chainsaw. The first thing I needed to do is to cut out bad sections and to cut myself pieces that are just over a foot long. Having shorter pieces for this project will make my life easier since it will be less hassle to mill it and to square it up. I plan on making coasters that are 4 by 4 inch in size, so I need 3 or 4 boards that are just over 4 inch wide, having maybe an eighth of an inch extra gives you some material to clean up your block after the glue up. Now, once I run them all through the planer, I will know how much thickness I actually have to decide if 3 or 4 of them are needed. All that's left now before the glue up is quick sanding with 80 grit sandpaper. Alright, time for the glue up. Get yourself an army of clamps ready. My favorite are those big C clamps. I wish I would have more of those. And when you think you got enough, get yourself more, because there are never enough clamps. I'm spreading the glue generously on both surfaces. The last thing I want is an air gap here and there between the boards. That would show 100% later on, which is also the reason why I use so many clamps. I just want to make sure I have a very fine but solid glue joint. Now, I like to wait about 24 hours before I remove the clamps. Basically, I leave it to dry overnight. The dried up glue will leave a mess, and I'm using a draw knife to get rid of the worst of it before I run it through the planer again to get to the final dimensions of 4 by 4 inch. To give the coasters a more interesting profile, I use the router to round over the corners. By setting up a stop lock on the miter saw, I can guarantee a consistent thickness of, in this case, 3/8 of an inch. Well, now the best part begins. Slicing your block like a loaf of bread is a lot of fun. And it reveals for the first time the pattern of your end grain. Now, chopping through this like this will most likely leave a little bit of tear out. Not bad enough to be unacceptable, but now is a good time to take care of it. And all it needs is a couple of strokes on 120 grit sandpaper and you're back in business. The miter saw blade did not leave a very nice finish, so both surfaces will have to be sanded as well. I don't want to do this by hand. I plan on using the random orbital sander for this. But the coasters are too thin to hold them in your hand, so I'm using this scrap piece of 1/4 inch plywood to improvise some sort of holder, and this actually worked really well. One thing that doesn't work well with a machine is sanding all the edges. This has to be done by hand, which is quite a boring job. Of course, you don't want to do this yourself, so go and find yourself a child. If you don't have one, don't worry, just ask your neighbors. I'm sure they're willing to give up their little for a while. And then just teach them their task, which should be fairly easy. Even though it's very boring, after all, it's a simple job. You probably could teach the squirrel in your backyard to do this. Just make sure they work fast enough. You don't want to be stuck in the garage till midnight. Now, this one did a good job in the beginning, but then I noticed it started to malfunction, and no matter what I said, it just got worse. Now, don't panic, there is a solution. Just a little bit of fuel is all it needs to get this engine going again. Now, look how good of a job she does now. I like to use linseed oil as a finish, and this is a great job for a child as well. Now, one bad thing about children is they are not very fuel efficient, so I ran into some trouble again here, but with some creativity I managed to solve this. This step is actually a lot of fun, because with the finish you finally see the beauty of the end grain.